Hello everyone and welcome to the new session of the lecture series, and today's topic is the living world. Okay, so this lecture is completely NCERT based, means all the topics covered in this lecture are from the NCERT book. Alright, and we'll be studying some of the terms such as biodiversity, nomenclature, what is the need of the nomenclature. We will study about some of the international codes, okay, and we'll study some other terms as well. Okay, so let's start with the lecture. First, let me give you a brief introduction about this topic. Okay, now we know there is a lot of diversity in this world. Okay, there are a lot of living organisms. Okay, so our planet Earth, okay, is a home to an enormous array of diverse living organism. Okay, if you look around, okay, you can see there are a lot of plants. Okay, there are a lot of insects, there are a lot of birds, there are a lot of animals. Means there is lot of diversity you can see. Alright, diversity of the living organisms. Okay, and according to a survey, the number of the species, okay, so these are different species, plants, insects, birds and animals. Okay, so the number of species that are known and described, okay, range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. Okay, so you can see there is so much diversity, or you can say there is lot of biodiversity, biological diversity. Okay, biological diversity. Okay, why there is a lot of diversity? Because again, there is continuous evolutions going on. There is a lot of mutations also sometimes can lead to, okay, sudden changes in the genetic material can sometimes lead to formation of a new species as well. Usually they are, okay, not carry forward. Now let's study this term biodiversity. So again, how can we define biodiversity? Biodiversity is the number and the type of organisms present on the earth is known as biodiversity. Or you can say simply, biodiversity describes the variety of the life on earth. Again, okay, so biodiversity, if you look at the name diversity, diversity means variety. Okay, variety of the life forms on the earth. Okay, so this you can describe biodiversity simply as, okay, variety of the different life forms present on the earth. Okay, or how again you can define biodiversity? It is the variety within, okay, and between all the species of plants, animal and microorganism. Okay, so this you have to remember, variety within the species. Okay, so here there are two aspects. Variety within the species. Okay, and second is variety among the species or between the species. Okay, within the species you can say at intra. Okay, here we can say inter, between any two. Okay, we use the term inter. Alright, now coming back again to this point, is the variety within and between all the species of plants, animal and even microorganism and the ecosystem with which they live in and interact. Alright, so this is known as biodiversity. Now let's study about, talk about the nomenclature. Okay, what is the need of the nomenclature? What is nomenclature? Naming of the organism. Is known as nomenclature. Okay, later we will study about the bionomical nomenclature. Okay, we will study about what is nomenclature also. Now, why nomenclature is important? Why naming of organism is important? Okay, so these are the points. So the local name, okay, vary from place to place. We all know that There is local name given to any organism always. Okay. Now this local name vary from place to place, even within a country. Okay, like you go from one state to another state, the name of the plant can change. Okay, in one state you can you call it as with a different name. In another state you can call it with different name. Okay. Now second point is, now as there is a lot of diversity or the variety in the naming, so there is a need to standardize the naming of the living organism. Okay, because it will create confusion, all these local names. So there is a need to standardize the naming process. Okay, we have to devise some rules. Okay, so now again, a particular organism should be known by the same name all over the world. Okay, so if a particular organism has a specific name and has the same name all over the world, then it will create less confusion. Okay, that's why scientific name were that's why we have scientific names. So scientific names are universal. Okay, they are same all over the world and they are accepted by all over the world. Now let's come to this term identification. Okay, now nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. Okay, so this process is known as when the organism is described correctly. Okay, this process is known as identification. And this identification process is very important for nomenclature. Okay, first we have to identify the organism. The first step will be identification of the organism. Identification. And then second step is the nomenclature, naming. Alright. Now, let's talk about some of the international codes. Now, some of the international codes here I have listed here. Okay, so these international codes provide guidelines and regulations to assign the scientific name. Okay, biological name. Okay, for plants, what is the scientific name? We call it as botanical name. And if we talk about animals, we have zoological name. Alright, and both of them, botanical and zoological names, are scientific names. Okay, so international code, they provide guidelines and regulation to assign the scientific name to the organism. For example, one of the international code, ICBN, which is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. Wherever you see this term botanical, it is related to plants. Okay, so this International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, they provide guidelines and regulation for naming of the plants. Okay, or you can say for naming, or for deciding the scientific name of the plants. Okay, so first you have to remember this ICBN. Okay, similarly for animals, animal taxonomists have evolved International Code for Zoological Nomenclature, ICZN. Alright, this is for animals. This gives guidelines and regulation for developing names, scientific names for animals. Next, this is a little bit of extra information that there is one more international code known as International Code of Nomenclature of Bacteria. Okay, so for different organisms, we have different international codes. Alright, So this is ICNB, International Code of Nomenclature of Bacteria. Then again, we have one more international code which is known as International Committee on Taxonomy of Viruses. Okay. So they decide the names of the viruses. Alright. ICTV, small b and then capital B. Okay. International Committee on Taxonomy of Viruses database. Now we were talking about the scientific name. Now let's discuss what is the need for these scientific names. Why we need these scientific names. Okay. This little bit we have already discussed. Okay. So first point is the scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Okay. So there is no confusion. And this name is accepted all over the world. Okay, we have the same name. Okay, like mango, the scientific name is Mangifera indica. So Mangifera indica, okay, if we say in some other part of the world, then again they will understand that Mangifera indica is mango. Alright, the next question is, they also ensure that such a name has not been used by any other known organism. Okay. So there should be only one scientific name for each organism. Okay, and this scientific name should not be used by other organism. Alright. Now let's talk about the biological nomenclature. Okay, again biological nomenclature means naming of the biological organism. Alright. Now biological nomenclature were introduced by Carolus Linnaeus. Okay, you have to remember this. Biological nomenclature was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus. And what does this biological nomenclature mean? It provides a name with two components. Okay. So whenever a name is given according to the biological nomenclature, that name will contain two components. Okay. So one of the component is the generic name and the other component is known as the specific epithet. You have to remember this term. Generic name, first is the generic name. Okay, first component. This is the first component of the scientific name. And then we have the specific epithet. Okay, so here you can write, suppose there is a scientific name. Okay, so scientific name has two components. First is the generic name. Second is the specific epithet. Okay. For example, the scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. Okay. And you can see it is italicized. Okay. Little bit tilted. Alright. So here, Mangifera. Okay. Mangifera represents the genus. Okay. It is a genus. It is a generic name. Okay. This is the first component. Okay. While indica, okay, is a particular species. Okay. That's why it is called as specific epithet. Okay. The second component of the name. Alright. Like suppose if we talk about humans. Okay. Humans are known as Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, humans have been given the name Homo sapiens. Alright. So Homo is the generic name, sapiens is the specific epithet. This is the generic name which tells you about the what? Genus. It tells you about the genus of the organism, and this is the species or the specific epithet. Okay. And specific epithet tells you about the what? Species. Alright. Now, universal rules of nomenclature. What are the rules of the nomenclature? Okay. What are the guidelines of the nomenclature? Now, first is biological names or the scientific names are generally in Latin. Okay, so Latin language is used. And the scientific names are written in italics, means they will be little bit tilted. Okay, so Latin is used. You have to remember this. English is not used, Latin is used. Why? Because Latin is a dead language now. It is a dead language and the meaning of the words remain the same. So this language is not evolving. Other languages are evolving and the meaning of the word changes. Okay, that's why Latin is used. It is a dead language and meaning of any word will not change. Meaning of a word doesn't change over the year. Okay. Again, another thing to remember that they are written in italics. Okay, we've already seen the example of Mangifera indica. If were written in italics. If they are not written in italics, then we have to underline them separately. Okay. So they, again, next point is they are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Alright. So always Latin is used. Next point is the first word in a biological name represents the genus. This we have already discussed. Okay, generic epithet, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. Now, next point is both the words in a biological name when handwritten. Okay, when you write the biological name, they are separately underlined. Okay, we have to underline them. If we don't underline them, then we have to write it in italics. Okay. And okay, why this is done? This is done to indicate their Latin origin. Okay. So again, let's take the example of Mangifera indica, mango. Mango, what is the scientific name or biological name? Mangifera indica. Either we have to italicize this. Okay. Mangifera indica. Okay. If we are writing them, we have to separate it. We have to underline it separately. Like we have to underline Mangifera and then separately we have to underline indica. Or what else we have to do? We have to write it in italics. Alright, if we are not underlining it. The next point is the first word denoting the genus. Okay, so again they are talking about the generic epithet. Starts with the capital letter. Alright, always the generic name will start with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. Alright, so again, if we talk about mango, let's take the example Mangifera indica. So Mangifera, generic name or the genus. Here it starts with a capital letter. Always. Okay. And then we have indica, specific epithet. And the name of the specific epithet starts with a small letter. Indica, we have to write. Okay. So this is the specific epithet. This is the generic name. I here should always be small. Okay. It is a small letter. The next point is name of the author. This is very important. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet. Okay. That is at the end of the biological name. At the end of the scientific name and is written in an abbreviated form. Okay. So the name of the author. Okay. What does this author means? Means the person who discovered it, who named it. Okay. Person who gave the scientific name and discovered that species. Okay. Alright, sometimes the scientific name or biological names are changed also. Okay, then also we have to mention the name of the author who changed the scientific name. Okay, so basically the person who gives the scientific name is known as the author. Okay, and sometimes the same person is also the discoverer also of that species. Alright, so example is again Mangifera indica. So here it has been italicized, so no need of underlining here. And then after the specific epithet, this is a specific epithet, the name of the author appears in abbreviated form. Okay. So lin here denotes Linnaeus. Okay. Linnaeus. Alright. So this is the author name. Okay. Author. Alright. So till here is clear. Now let's study this another term which is known as classification. Okay, after nomenclature we have this classification. So how can we define classification? Ordering of organism into groups. Alright. So we have named the organism. First we have identified the organism. Okay. First step was identification. Okay, then this is the nomenclature, biological nomenclature. Okay, and then what we have to do? We have to classify them. We have to organize them. Okay, or we have to order them. Ordering of the organism into groups. Okay, is known as classification. Now, it is a process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories. Okay, it is the grouping of the organism into categories based on some easily observable characters. Okay, so depending on the characters, okay, suppose we take the morphological characters, suppose. Okay, so depending on the morphology, okay, the organism can be grouped into convenient categories. Means we can organize them or we can, okay, arrange them in different categories. Okay. Another, okay, characters you can take at the anatomical level also. Okay. Physiological, anatomical, morphological, evolutionary. Okay, they can be biochemical. All right. Now, what is the need for classification? Why we need to classify the organism? Okay, so the first point is it makes the study of the living organism comparatively easy. Okay, so this point is very easy to understand. So why we need to classify? Why? Because it makes the study of this organism very easy. If they are organized, if anything is organized, then it is very easy to study them. Okay. So next point is it facilitates the specific identification of any given organism. Okay. So with the help of classification, we can easily identify, okay, or we can specifically identify any given organism because they are arranged so nicely. All right. Now, next point is the study of a new representative specimen. If you want to study a representative specimen from each discrete group, okay, helps us to integrate the idea of life as a whole. Okay. So if you want to, okay, if there is a group, okay, if there is one group of plants, Okay. So now these plants are organized in a specific category. Okay, depending on what? Depending on the observable characteristic. Usually observable characteristic is morphological. Based on the observable characters. Okay, some of the plants are grouped into one category. Now we can study a representative specimen. Okay, a specimen which represents this entire group. So classification helps to study the entire group by studying a representative organism. Okay, a representative specimen. By studying this representative specimen, we can know about the entire group of the plants. No need to study the individual plant. Okay, so it will give you a fair idea. All right. The next point is it reveals the interrelationships among the various groups of organism. All right. So this is also why we need to classify the organism into different categories, because it reveals the interrelationship among the various group of organisms. So there is a lot of biodiversity. So we need to find what is the relationship between the different organism or different categories of organism. So that's why classification is very important. All right. So this was the end of classification. Now there are some more points also regarding the need for classification. Okay. Next is it gives a general idea about the geological distribution of plants and animals. Okay. Geological distribution. Okay. So whenever we categorize a plant, we also mention the geographical distribution. Okay. So by studying these specimens, we can have a general idea about the geographical distribution, where they are located. Next point is it indicates the evolutionary relationship in different groups of organism. All right, we can study the evolutionary relationship also in different group of organism. All right, so that's why classification is very important. Okay, so this was the end of this lecture. We will study rest of the topic in the next session. Thank you very much for listening.